Hello and welcome to another video. So today I'm doing the first installment in my reading vlog for The Wild Hunt by Robert Jordan. This is the second book in the Wheel of Time series, and this is the second video installment of my read through of the Wheel of Time, where I read through the Wheel of Time for the first time and I vlog the experience. So I give you summaries of what's going on for each time I do an update, and then some of my initial reactions, including things like what's confusing me, what do I think might happen next, what am I hoping to happen next, all that kind of stuff. Just kind of giving you a sense of my experience reading the Wheel of Time for the first time, which I think can be really fun because it is such an epic series. It is the longest series I've ever tried to read in its entirety, and so I'm really excited to continue doing this series of videos. One thing to note is that it will 100% contain spoilers, so if you do not want to know what's going to happen in The Great Hunt, if you have not read it before, please do not watch this video because it's going to have a ton of spoilers. I am in no way going to euphemize anything, gloss over anything. If it happens in The Great Hunt, it is up for grabs. That being said, I haven't read beyond The Great Hunt, so if you have read the entirety of the Wheel of Time series, I also ask that you not put spoilers in the comments for the rest of the series. If you want to talk about The Great Hunt, by all means do so in the comments, but otherwise please avoid those. I will be blocking spoiler comments. All right, so The Great Hunt. I started reading this with my boyfriend 2 days ago, I believe. We finished The Eye of the World and then immediately read the prologue for The Great Hunt. I left off my last vlog talking about how I was really confused because I felt like the big bad of the season was going to be the Dark One, who we've been led to believe is Beelzemon, who has been visiting Rand in dreams. And at the end of The Eye of the World, Rand attacks Beelzemon with this like incredible wielding of the one power, and then he like burns up and it seems like he's dead. And I was really confused. Well, the prologue of The Great Hunt seems to happen after that, and Beelzemon is talking to and giving orders to Dark Friends. And there's like this meeting of Dark Friends, and he's giving them orders and not telling them to be on the lookout for Rand, Mat, and Perrin. And so he doesn't seem dead. He seems hurt. Like they talk about how he has injuries of some kind that are visible. So he seems hurt, but he definitely doesn't seem dead. So I don't know what that's about. That being said, I guess I'm not surprised that he's not dead, because he is if Beelzemon truly is the Dark One and not like a puppet or someone speaking for the Dark One, like a general, because I'm not sure yet how convinced I am that that's true. I don't know how much evidence we have of it. Yeah. Anyway, assuming he is really the Dark One. The Dark One is supposed to be like the antithesis to the creator. Like if the creator is, to use some Christian analogies, if the creator is God, then the Dark One is like Satan, you know, like the devil. And when you have this ultra powerful being that was around during the creation of the world, he definitely doesn't seem like he's going to be killed easily. He also, I don't know what it means for him to die, right? Beelzemon's realm is supposed to also include death. Like once people die, he can still have access to them. He can still control them. That's like part of his set of powers, is some connection to death and dead people. So when you are Lord of Death and then you die, what does that mean? So I don't know. I don't know what to expect about what happened to him, how he survived, and then how he might ultimately be defeated, right? Because even at the beginning of this series, he wasn't defeated in the sense that he was killed. He was imprisoned, and right now it seems like he's trying to get out of that prison. So at the end of it all, are we going to ultimately destroy him in some way, or is he just going to be re-imprisoned? I don't know. The next thing I want to talk about for this book is the first few chapters. I am on chapter 7, and when we start, Rand and his friends are still at Faldera, this like, I think it's a fort kind of place. It's a little town or something. The places are, I get confused with the places. But he is at Faldera. He has been delaying leaving. At the end of The Eye of the World, he said that he was going to set out on his own because he wanted to make sure that he didn't hurt anyone with the one power. that if he couldn't make himself not touch it, then as he went crazy, he wouldn't hurt anyone. But at this point, it's been several weeks. I think it's implied that it's almost a month, and he's not gone. He's doing sword practice with Lan, and I think in part that's because Moraine has not been speaking to him. She has been avoiding him, and he really doesn't want to leave without the chance to talk to her and to really see if there's anything she can say to help him as he's setting out to hopefully not encounter the sickness that men undergo when they touch Satan, the male half of the one power. So that's happening, and then the Amerlin seat, the female head of the Aes Sedai, comes to Faldera, and Rand is really worried that she knows about him and that she's coming to like capture him and force him to be gentled and or even killed. And so he's really worried, and he decides to hide. And there's this really funny scene where he runs into Egwene, and they are talking about how he's trying to hide from the Amerlin seat, and Egwene decides, you know what, where is a good place to hide you? Probably the women's apartments, which is funny because here the men and women have separate living quarters, and men are 100% not allowed into the women's apartments unless they are specifically invited. And so Egwene is inviting him, so it's not technically against the rules, but it's definitely kind of like it's kind of improper. Like, you wouldn't want to be found there, so that's funny. So they go to do that. And then we get a point of view chapter from Moraine, which was really wild. Rand's point of view chapters are still my favorite, but we get a POV chapter from Moraine, as well as another Aes Sedai character, Liandrin, I believe is her name. And so that's interesting because we're really expanding the breadth of characters that we read from their perspective. And then in Moraine's chapter, she meets with the Aes Sedai head, the Amerlin seat, and it turns out that they're far more friendly than you would have expected. They were friends as children, and they have some plot that they're keeping from the rest of the Aes Sedai, which I was really surprised by. Apparently, it involves having found Rand and then taking him to Tar Valon to be trained. So that's crazy because one, he's supposed to be not using the one power, but they want to train him for something. I don't know what exactly. The second thing is that Moraine's point of view definitely tells us that there are things she's hiding from the Amerlin seat. So Moraine and the Amerlin seat are like plotting to use Rand for something, and then somehow Moraine has even more of a plan that she's keeping from the Amerlin seat. So I don't know what that involves. I have no idea what else she could be plotting or what the repercussions of that are going to be. And at this point in time, she talks about how she has been avoiding Rand because she doesn't want to push him too hard and cause him to just completely flee and stop cooperating. So she really is trying to like let him think that he's doing things on his own. And so there's definitely this intent to manipulate him into something. They also confirm that they believe Rand to be the Dragon Reborn, or at least that he will become the Dragon Reborn. He is not there yet. I think someone else implies that he's not there yet, but he has the potential to become that person who they believe is going to like rally the country and rally armies against the Dark One. So that's pretty wild. At the very end though of this set of chapters where I stopped last night, Trollocs invade Faldara, which has never happened. There was some dark friend on the inside that like killed the guards at the gates, let everyone in, let a fade in, all of it. People are dying. Rand escapes he leaves the women's apartments to go find Egwene, who he has heard is supposed to be in the dungeons with Padan Fain, who has, at the end of the Eye of the World, proved to be a dark friend. And he's really worried about her, so he runs down, right? But it's really crazy because he finds the dungeons, like, people were murdered, the guards were killed, Egwene and Mat were injured, and Mat doesn't have his dagger. So now I'm really worried about Mat, and I don't know why, but I like him so much more. Like, now that his dagger is in danger and he has been cured from the weird paranoia that the dagger was causing him to undertake for the time being, I like him so much better. In The Eye of the World, he was really getting on my nerves. I like him so much better now, and I'm really worried about him and what's going to happen with his dagger. Moraine and the Amerlin seat have been called to help him, so I don't know if that's going to be successful, but I hope that it is. And Egwene's injury was said not to be very severe, so she's supposed to be okay, and now Bran is left with the choice of, does he take this opportunity to leave like he's supposed to or not? The other crazy thing that happened is that the Horn of Valoron, or Valir, I don't know if it's the Horn of, I always forget that word, it's just not sticking in my head. But the magic horn that they found at the end of the Eye of the World that's supposed to be able to control armies of the dead got taken, and so that's wild, because I thought the Great Hunt was going to be about the characters going to Ilion, where people are gathering to hunt for the horn, and the Great Hunt for the Horn of Valoron, or Valoron, or Valor, whatever the horn is called. That's a famous myth story, and so that's what I thought this was going to be about. But then they found the horn and I was like, what? But now the horn is missing, so I definitely feel like they're about to go find the horn. I don't know who they are. I don't know who's going to be sent to do this, because originally Matt, Perrin, and Bran were going to be sent with the horn to take it to Ilion, but now the horn is missing, so someone's got to find it, and I don't know who that's going to be, and it's wild. So that's the first 7 chapters. This book is smaller than The Eye of the World, so it shouldn't take us quite as long to finish. It's a little over 700 pages. No, it's not even 700 pages, and The Eye of the World was a little over almost 800 pages, so this is about 100 pages fewer, and I'm excited. Before I go, I want to point out some details about the edition that I'm reading versus the edition that my boyfriend owns. So these are the new paperback, mass market paperback box set editions that are currently being released. So the last set of books gets released in June, and this one was released in October of last year. They are very simple covers with this like symbol that I believe is supposed to represent the Wheel of Time and the Serpent of Time or something like that. And I really love this cover in particular, like the purple foiled letters on the gray background. I think it's really pretty. My boyfriend owns the set of mass market paperback editions that have the original cover art on them. And for whatever reason, we couldn't find his copy of The Great Hunt, so we did buy another version of it from Amazon. And it's really weird. Like, the spine is super warped, and I hate the cover. I just don't like this artwork. That's why I really wanted to get these editions. But this is the original artwork for that. This is so old. There's a full synopsis on the back, which I haven't looked at. Now, if you look at Wheel of Time books, the back is super general. This synopsis is on the back of every single book that I have so far in the first 3 box set that I bought. And it's really general. It just says, the wheel of time turns and ages come and pass. What was, what will be, and what is may yet fall under shadow. Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. And that's all you know. And you don't know much about what this series is even about from those synopses. This original one has like a full synopsis, and apparently my boyfriend said that it included the fact that the horn got stolen. That happens 100 pages in, so it definitely feels like a spoiler, because it is likely the event that sparks the rest of the novel, but at the same time, it's not within the first like couple of chapters, you know, so that feels like too much information. Other features about this book is that it's really weird. It's like cut weird so that the words are kind of crooked. And at the beginning of the book, you get a map. See, when this book was published, only the first 3 books were even out. So it's old. This is what the map looks like. It's very sparse. It's not very intricate. It's just lines and some words that tell you where places are. Whereas in the edition I have, the map is far more intricate and it looks more like a map. You can see mountain ranges and like rivers and things like that. So the 2 editions are super different. Honestly, this one was irritating enough that my boyfriend has moved to a digital version of this book because it's just hard to read when the pages are crooked and like the words are crooked on the pages. So it's really weird, but it does complete his set. So when we like put the books up on the shelves, everything is matching and everything is complete. So the completionists in us wanted to have this book, even though this copy in particular is not very fun to read. And then I'm going to continue to collect these books. I'll probably order the next box set in the next couple of weeks once we get most of the way through this book so that it has time to get here before we finish the third book. And yeah, so that was the first update of this vlog. It was pretty lengthy. Hopefully some of my other updates will be shorter, but I wanted to give you a good sense of what I was reading, how I was reading, and where we are when we start this book. All right, see you next time. Hello and welcome to another Eye of the World update. So it is now about a week since I started reading The Eye of the World, and I've gotten a little over halfway through, like just a smidgen. And I know that just because I did take the time to calculate like how many pages are in the book and exactly where the halfway point is. So I'm a little beyond that. And so much has happened. I'm on chapter 24. And right now, Egwene and Nynaeve have just made it to Tar Valon. So they were traveling with the Amerlin seat for a while and they just got there. I'm still not the biggest fan of Egwene. She hasn't done anything really that has made me more angry at her, but she also hasn't done anything that has made me like her more. So still not my favorite. And then Nynaeve, I don't get her. She is so angry. Like, she hates Moraine. She seems to blame Moraine for everything that has happened to her and Rand and the other people from Eamon's Field, and therefore she thinks that she needs to get back at Moraine and like make her pay for what she's done to them. And it's such a misplaced anger. I mean, Moraine took them away from Eamon's Field and she has like carried them along this path and is pushing Grand to kind of control his channeling ability and things like that. But she didn't tell Nynaeve to leave Eamon's Field. Okay, so one, Nynaeve has not been a wisdom for Eamon's Field for months now. So that village is now going without their wisdom. She gave them a temporary wisdom for a while from another village, but that lady's going to have to get back to her village. So who knows what the situation is there, right? So I feel like there's also some guilt on Nynaeve's part from that. And she also generalizes that hatred of Moraine to a hatred for Aes Sedai as a whole. And I don't get it. As far as I know that the Aes Sedai are supposed to be like, you can't trust them. And in the myths, they are morally, like, a lot of them have done bad things. I haven't seen any of these bad things. The only bad thing I can see is the breaking of the world, which was caused by a male Aes Sedai. And I know that the red Aes Sedai are supposed to be slightly more brutal, but not like, I don't know. I don't have any examples of it. It's just what they've told me. And then the black Aes Sedai are like secretly dark friends. So yeah, that's bad. But as a whole, they haven't done anything. And Nynaeve is so angry at Moraine, and like what's pushing her to train and to like get better at channeling is this anger that doesn't make any sense to me. So that's really weird. And I don't get it, because at the end of the day, the Dark One was looking for Rand, and he was sending the Trollocs to Eamon's Field independent of Moraine. And so they've lasted as long as they have because of her. Otherwise, the Trollocs would have found Rand eventually. He would have been confused. Things would have gotten bad. But Moraine has kind of been leading him. Whether she's doing that like altruistically or just for the good of the world, or if she has some of her own personal goals that she's hiding from people, I don't know. there's a lot about her that's not certain, but she definitely doesn't seem to deserve as much hatred as Nynaeve seems to be pushing onto her. So that's really weird to me. So that's where Nynaeve is. She just went through her trials to face her fears through these 3 arches, and that was really interesting. That was the last chapter I read last night. Queen is there. She's kind of floating in the background right now. She is at Tar Valon because she's hoping that while she learns to become an Aes Sedai, she'll discover something that can help Rand. And then Rand got lost in this like alternate dimension thing. There was a stone that Loyal found while they were traveling to find the horn and following the tracks of Padan Fain and his dark friends. And he accidentally in the night channeled into this stone, which is actually like a portal thingy that can take you into alternate dimensions of things that might have been other timelines. And so they were trapped there for a little while, and there he met a woman named Celine, and she is sketchy. I do not trust her at all. I have a theory right now. I think that she is a lady, the female version of the Dark One, essentially, and I forget what her name is. I'm going to find it. I highlighted it. I kind of feel like Celine might be some version of Lanfear, who is, I can't remember the details, but she's essentially connected to the Dark One, and she was connected to the dragon. So the original Lews Therin Telamon was like in an affair or something with Lanfear. And if Rand is the dragon reborn, and I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know if he is taking the role that Lews Therin Telamon did when he was the dragon, or if he's like some kind of reincarnation of Lews Therin Telamon. But if they're connected, I feel like Celine is the like Lanfear reborn, if that's a thing. I don't know. That's my working theory right now because she's super sketchy. And she's also like really... She like uses her beauty to manipulate Rand, and Rand is unusually and almost inexplicably taken with her. It is explained that even the others that he's traveling with, Loyal and a man named Kieran, are also super taken with her, but she seems to like be targeting Rand, and she's trying to get him to take the horn and like use it for glory and to travel away with her. And she's seducing him with this idea that she would want to be with the man who holds the Horn of Valorant. I think it's pronounced Valorant. And that's like something she's trying to get him to do. And she's always trying to tell him, oh, you should take the horn out. I just want to see it. And it doesn't make sense. Like, who is she? What does she want? And she gets really mad at Rand when he doesn't want to take the horn out because it's dangerous. And so that happened. They eventually got out of the alternate timeline dimension thing because Rand was able to channel into another stone travel thingy and get them back to their proper timeline. And so that was wild because now Rand knows like the kind of euphoria of channeling, and it's becoming harder for him to resist that lure. And I don't trust Celine. I don't trust her. I don't get it. She's up to something. I just don't know what. She says she's not an Aes Sedai, and yet she was able to get into the alternate timeline dimension where Rand found her via one of the traveling stones, and you can only use those traveling stones if you can channel. So she has some connection to the One Power. Another reason why I think that she is in connection with the Dark One and Lanfear, but it's like a loose theory. I don't know. It's just where my soul is going. So I don't know what's going to happen. And now they're just kind of waiting around because they were hoping that the Dark Friends would stop by with the horn, and then they found it. They actually managed to take it back, and now they're in Karheen, I think is the name of the city. And I don't remember what they expect to get done there, but it's where they are right now. And so my working theory, Celine is Lanfear, and I don't know what's going to happen next. This book is shorter than The Eye of the World, and then The Dragon Reborn is shorter still, and then the books get longer again. But I don't know. I kind of feel like in this book, I expect Rand to ultimately find Inkatar and Matt and Perrin again so that he can give them the horn and the sword. Like, I feel like that's the arc that this book is going to take. And I guess we'll just see if that's actually what comes to happen. Okay, so first I want to start by saying I'm sorry if you can hear the rain in the background. It's raining a lot and it's probably kind of loud. Second, I have not updated this vlog for the Great Hunt in a while, and I feel like my updates have been less frequent than they were for the Eye of the World, so this video overall is probably going to be shorter and or less. There's just less to say. I don't know. Something about the Great Hunt is really making it hard for me to feel super into it, super engaged, and like have a ton to say about it. I'm not incredibly invested in individual moments. I don't know. So I just read through chapter 37 yesterday, and that's the chapter that was the best one so far, chapter 37. When we were approaching 37, my boyfriend said he remembered really liking it, and I know why. It's really good. Basically, things have happened. Rand and people got back to their regular dimension. They were waiting in Karakian for a while to give Ingtar and the people they were traveling with the horn and the dagger, which Matt and Perrin were also traveling with them. But then the horn got stolen, and now they're trying to find it, and now everyone's grouped up again, which I always like more than when the characters are all separate, because so much of what happens when they're separate is just their internal thoughts and some action. But what I love the most about anything I read is really reading the interactions between the characters. I love reading about their relationships with each other and the things they say to each other. I love romance, and I love reading about like a really good, solid, like loyal friendships and family dynamics and things like that. And when the characters are all separated on their individual journeys, it's so much more plot heavy. Like, they're just getting to a place and they're just doing a thing, and it's less about their interactions with each other. And then, yeah, I mean, there's some chapters I like even if it's more introspective. Like, Rand has a lot going on and his chapters are always interesting to me, but not really a lot of the other characters right now. The chapter though is really interesting because the Dark Friends took the horn and are going to Tommen Head, or supposedly they are. And so in order to get there, they are not taking the way gates because the way gates have the black wind like at the gates and they just can't get past it. And they've tried two-way gates and it's just there and it seems like it's waiting for them, even though that shouldn't be possible. And so they had to use these portal stones. And while Rand was trying to channel into a portal stone, he was channeling so much power that it was kind of uncontrolled and glitchy. And we saw a lot of scenes of other timelines and possible futures that could have been. And it was so cool. Like, we see Rand die in so many different ways, and we see him take so many different paths with his channeling, from like going all in and going crazy to avoiding it as long as possible, to never really knowing what's going on with him, but slowly going crazy anyway because he can't stop unconsciously channeling and things like that. And every time he dies, at the very end, in every single timeline, we hear supposedly the Dark One saying, "I have won again, Luz Theron," or something like that. And so that's crazy because in so many of these timelines, Rand dies and the Dark One wins. And so hopefully, presumably, this is the one where he's not going to win, but we don't know that yet. And so that was really, really fun and really interesting. And we see Rand do all kinds of things, like grow old and join an army and fight a war and marry a queen and marry other people, and just all of these timelines of things that could have happened. So that was a lot of fun and it was really interesting to read about. And now they are finally at Tommen Head, or very nearby. They've exited the portal stones. They're hoping to find the Dark Friends, but during this traveling period, because time works weird in other timelines and in other dimensions, they are actually 4 months ahead of when they left. They lost 4 months of time. So they're just hoping that the Dark Friends are still where they said they would be. But I'm kind of confused because we also saw a scene where Pat and Fane gave the horn to these people, the Xianchan or Sichan invader people who claim, I believe, to be the armies of Otter Arthur Hawking returned. So there is this like legend in the world where Arthur Hawking is this guy who was like a king or a conqueror or something, and he sent armies across the sea to like explore and see another continent, and supposedly at some point they're set to return. Well, now these people claim they have returned, and they are kind of taking over and trying to reclaim power and call upon oaths that they claim the people currently living on the land have forgotten. And Patton Fane gives the horn to the leader of this army thing. And I don't know what his move is with that. Exactly. And there's just, I feel like I'm waiting a lot. And I don't like, I don't know, there's some character dynamics I don't like Rand is still completely enamored with the idea of Celine, that sketchy woman he met in the other dimension. And I just kind of hate her, so I don't care. And then Nynaeve is still angry for no reason, or no good reason, at anyone in particular. And then Egwene is learning to channel, but she still gets weirdly and pettily jealous about random things. Like, she gets to Tar-Valon and she meets Elena? Her name's not Elena. The princess. I forget her name. Who met Rand, and she also meets Min, who met Rand, and both of them are kind of into him. And Egwene, as she's talking to them, ultimately becomes friends with them, but has like this time where she's kind of weirdly jealous that he's just talked to them. Like, it really irritates me that Egwene was at all irritated that they seemed to like him at all. Because one, Rand's just a nice guy, and Egwene, he doesn't talk to her more or is not as nice to her, because every conversation they have ends with her calling him stupid and walking away and like refusing to talk to him. So I don't get it, and I don't like her. And so I'm not surprised that Rand on his journey has met other people who are also kind of into him. And independent of whether they're into him, he has not pursued any of them. Like, Rand is still very much into Egwene, so it just bothers me that she is so, I don't know. I don't like her. I don't like her at all. And oh, we met Tom Marilyn. He's still alive. They found each other in Cairhien, and some really sad stuff happened. He was traveling with this young woman who they seemed to be like falling for each other, and the age gap was kind of weird, but it definitely seemed quite genuine. But then Cairhien has this weird political game going on in the background, and because of it, people were searching for Tom and wanted to know what his stakes were in it. And something or other happened, and they ended up killing his partner, and that was really sad. And he met Rand and then said he wasn't going to continue traveling with Rand or like meet up with him again and follow him now that they've caught up, because he doesn't want to be in the game. He doesn't want to risk all the things that are probably going to happen as a result of them pursuing the Horn and the Dark One rising and things like that. But now this woman he was falling in love with has died and been murdered, and I don't know what he's going to do next. I think he really plans to kind of find those who killed her. So that's really interesting and kind of sad. That's really it. I'm just kind of waiting for them to find the Horn, because it keeps slipping out of their fingers. I'm kind of irritated. Supposedly, of the first 4 books, my boyfriend has told me that the second is the worst, and I kind of feel it. And I'm having trouble articulating why I am not as into this book as I was into The Eye of the World. But it's definitely harder to stay super engaged. And couple that with the fact that I've been in a mild reading slump the past couple of weeks, or not the past couple of weeks, really just the past week, and finding it hard to motivate myself to read. Really, the only thing that has kept me reading is that I have a schedule that I keep for myself and like goals that I want to accomplish for what I read this month. And even though I'm mostly following them still, that's the only thing that's really kept me wanting to read The Great Hunt. That and the fact that I'm reading it with my boyfriend, and he's still really excited for me to read the series, so he wants to read whenever we have time to read it, and so I'll read with him. But yeah, it's an interesting book. So I'll be back sometime, someday, probably not until I finish it, with my next update. Alright, So this will be my last update for Great Hunt. I finished it last night and it was wild. I mean, the last 100 pages of this were wild. Like, so many things were happening, and it's in such stark contrast to how little it felt happened in the rest of the book. Like, I get that the ending was like a climax scene and set of scenes, but I just found the middle really hard to get through. I don't know why. I'm having trouble articulating exactly what it is. It's some combination of slow events spread out over a great deal of time and a great deal of space. So a lot of the characters are very often kind of doing their own thing or doing things in much smaller groups and not in ways that really, like, the combinations of characters that existed didn't always have any conflicts within them. Like, Rand spent a lot of time traveling with Loyal and Huron, but Loyal and Huron didn't do a ton in those sequences except kind of travel with him, call him Lord, help tell him which directions to go to, but a lot of it was like Rand thinking about the power, and that's fine, but it also wasn't the most engaging. And so yeah, things like that really made the first half or first 3/4 even hard to stay into, whereas in the last bit crazy things happened and I'm just floored. One, I still don't like Egwene. I don't like the romantic components of it right now, right? So we have Rand, who's our main character, kind of protagonist person. We did get confirmation that he's like the dragon reborn. Okay, so that's fine. But Egwene does this weird thing and she's still doing it where like I guess she's doing it a little less, but I still don't like it. She's protective of Rand, but also seems to be under the like acceptance that she and Rand can't be together, right? Rand is the dragon reborn, Rand can channel, Rand is not a good match for anybody. Like, he can't marry anyone and be any good because he's either going to die or be crazy, really, by the end of all this. It's unlikely that he's going to get any kind of happily ever after. So she's pretty like set on the fact that she's not going to get to marry him like she thought she might. That being said, she also has, and that assumption is really weird to me too. It's like everyone around them, Rand and Egwene themselves, kind of started this journey under the assumption that they were probably going to get with each other someday. At the same time, they didn't seem to have any true established friendship that made that make sense. You know, like, they have this weird loyalty to each other, but at the same time, they're always arguing. And so it just doesn't feel justified. And at the end of it all, even when she's decided that she can't marry him, Egwene doesn't seem to be maintaining any kind of friendship with Rand. Even though, like I said, she's still protective of him and still gets kind of jealous when other people seem to be into him, but then doesn't do much in the way of backing him up ever, or at least not in any actions that make sense. Like, Rand gets hurt at the very end of this book and she's gone before he wakes up, and there are arguments for why that had to be, but it just, I don't know, she didn't leave a note. She just didn't seem or act in a way that showed any of this care she seems to have for Rand, which bothers me because she's just telling me about how she cares for Rand, but then when the time comes and he's hurt, she doesn't wait for him to wake up before she travels off to go to Tarvalon. And I feel like she really gotta be, I don't know. It doesn't feel like they're friends. It feels like she keeps thinking about how she can't be with him and she can't help him and she can't think about him in any way now that they can't be married. That's what bothers me. This idea that because Rand is not a suitable marriage prospect, now he's not even really worth having any kind of relationship with. Or at least maintaining said relationship. I don't know. Even though it feels like they still think of each other as friends, but they don't do anything about that. They don't act like it. So that bothers me. Then we've got this weird, like, situation happening where Rand now has like 4 potential suitors, right? Egwene's into him, but she is off to Tarvalon and seems to be, I mean, sensibly, I get it, thinking that he's not really a real prospect because he's going to be crazy or dead by the end of things, right? He's got a weird path ahead of him. But then you also have in the background Elf, who we haven't seen very often, but she is in Tarvalon, and so I feel like she's going to come back. We have Elaine, who definitely seems to be kind of into Rand. And then we have Min, who didn't seem like she was into him at all. And then at the very end of this book, is suddenly like, well, you know, Egwene, if you're not going to pursue Rand, then I think I can pursue Rand. And it's like, I mean, I like Rand. Rand is my favorite character. Rand is good stuff. But also, all four of them, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. And yeah, so I'm not a big fan of how the romance tie lines are playing out right now. I don't really get them. But I am very interested in the character Celine, who it hasn't been like 100% confirmed, but was like heavily implied that she is Lanfear. So I'm pretty confident about that. And it's wild because Lanfear is a Forsaken who has been tied to Lews Therin in the past. So historically, Lanfear has been in love with Lews Therin. It hasn't been made especially clear to me how Lews Therin has responded to that. I mean, we saw in the prologue of the Eye of the World that he had like a wife. I don't know who that is. When Rand was trying to get the portal stones to work, we saw him live out several different lives, and he married many different types of people. Really the 4 that are into him right now. But we haven't seen Lanfear come up again, like in that aspect. And so I'm really interested because now she's coming in and she definitely seems invested in Rand. She followed him as Celine. When Rand is hurt at the end, she talks to Min and says, you know, like, he's always going to be mine. Take care of him for me until I get back or whatever. So that's an interesting tie that I'm interested in, this idea of what their relationship is like, especially since Rand, though he is the Dragon Reborn, he does not have those memories. He doesn't have that tie to Lews Therin, whereas Lanfear, as this like immortal Forsaken, seems to have a much longer memory. And so she remembers Rand as Lews Therin and whatever relationship they had, whereas Rand does not. So that's an interesting thread that I'm excited to learn more about. At the end of this, I called that Ingtar wasn't going to make it out. I was not expecting him to be a dark friend. That took me by surprise. And also because it took me by such surprise that I wasn't as emotionally hit by it. Supposedly my boyfriend says there was some like foreshadowing, and I get it. I see it now that Ingtar was super into the horn. He was all about how desperately he had to be the one to find it because he saw it as a way to redeem himself for his actions as a dark friend. So I get that. But I don't know, I just didn't connect with Ingtar, so I kind of felt like he was the one that wasn't going to make it out. And I was right, he did make it out. I'm glad that Loyal didn't even get near the last battle because he has to be protected at all costs. I love Loyal. Something that really confused me at the end here, and I highlighted it. I started highlighting in the last 100 pages. There was like a good third of this book where I just didn't break out my highlighters because I didn't care strongly enough about any individual thing. But I want to read this out. Moraine is talking to Min and Rand at the very end. And she's telling them about how she found 2 more broken seals of the Dark One, which means that there are 3 seals on his prison now that are broken. And then she says, when all 7 are broken, perhaps even before, the patch men put over the hole they drilled into the prison the Creator made will be torn asunder. And that's really weird to me because it seems to be implying that men put this patch over a hole they drilled into the prison of the Dark One. And as far as I know, we haven't been given any information on how or when or why that happened. Like, what did men do that made holes into the Dark One's prison that they then had to patch up? Because my understanding has been that men created the prison that the Dark One is in. However, Moraine seems to be saying that the Creator made the prison, which makes sense because the Dark One is supposed to be like the antithesis to the Creator. If the Creator is kind of like God, then the Dark One is like Satan, right? To use Christian analogies. So that it would make sense also that the creator made the prison, because the Dark One is this like unearthly power. But then these seals are the result of man patching up this prison that they messed up. And I don't know how they did it, and I don't know what happened. And I was really taken aback by that sentence, because it was counter to some assumptions I had been making about the Dark One's prison. And I hope we get more information on that, because now I'm a little confused and I don't know what the true story is here. Well, really, it's kind of wild, because Rand faces off with the Dark One again at the end of this book. So now we're 2 for 2. Rand facing off with the Dark One, seems to think he's killed him, but then basically everyone around him is like, no, the Dark One can't be killed that easily, which I get. He's super like powerful bad guy. But it's also funny because it reminds me so much of like Voldemort. And I know that like this book happened before, you know, like this series, and then even Tolkien before this series really set the like archetype of a Dark One and an evil lord. But it's just so funny to see it here again, you know, especially coming from having read something like as popular as like Harry Potter before. It doesn't take away from this at all. It's just funny to note that we have that same pattern happening, where the main character Rand is facing off with the Dark One, and that kind of is parallel to like Harry Potter facing off Voldemort. We think he's killed him, but he's back, or something like that. And I think that's funny. Other things include the fact that after this battle in this after the battle in this book, Rand and I don't get how this works. It's really hard for me to visualize, but apparently Rand and the Dark One had their battle like in the sky, and they were super, super visible to people for miles and miles and miles. And so now there's like clear rumors happening, and like clear accounts and clear drawings of Rand battling the Dark One, and Rand truly being the Dragon Reborn, so he can't hide anymore. Like, people very soon all over the country are going to know who he is. They're going to know that he's the Dragon Reborn, and that's going to change things for him, because up until now he's been kind of like hesitant to accept that role. But at the same time, something I did really appreciate about this book was watching him really fall into that role. Like, a really funny thing that recurs throughout this book is that people keep mistaking Rand for a lord. They just assume he's a lord because he's like travels with an Ogier, and he's associated with Aes Sedai, and he has a heron blade, and so people assume he has power. And he keeps telling people, no, I'm just a shepherd. I don't want to be a lord. I'm not a lord. I don't want to be the Dragon Reborn. I'm not the Dragon Reborn. But as people keep assuming he's a lord, and as people keep giving him power and putting him in positions of leadership, Rand starts to take on that role. Like when he is in the parallel dimension with Loyal and Huron starts calling him a lord. And it's the first time Rand really stops arguing about it. He just kind of accepts it, because he feels in this new dimension that because he was partially quite responsible for them being there, he's responsible to get them out. And so if it brings Huron comfort to treat him like a lord and just see him as this authority and leadership figure, then he's going to do that until he gets them out. As the book carries on, Rand does that more and more. Like, he's Inktar's second, and he gets back from this time traveling in this other dimension, and he starts to give orders over Inktar sometimes, and he tries to reel himself back, and he tries not to do that, and he apologizes to Inktar, but at the end of the day, he still takes charge several times, and at the end of it all, Inktar's men, once he's gone, very readily pledge themselves to him. And Rand wasn't a lord at all, and yet he has had all of the, and I'm using lord like it's in the book as like this leadership position, right? So it's this placeholder for this idea, and Rand wasn't that at all. He was just a shepherd. He didn't have any like confidence in himself. He didn't believe he had any power, but things happen anyway. Like in Caerhien, with the political game that everybody plays, he tried to sit out of it completely, and yet his sitting out made statements to people because they believed in him and they believed him to have some kind of power. That even though he tried to do nothing, he still did things that ultimately led to like the breakout of a civil war in Cairhien. Like his inaction really put to the surface lots of political tension, and now the king is dead and there's a civil war. And Rand at the very end was like, okay, I didn't do anything in Cairhien, you cannot blame that on me. But then Moiraine was just like, your inaction spoke. And so it's just super wild to see how, even though Rand tried not to have this role, it's happening to him. But even more than that, and what I'm most impressed by and really appreciate is how, even if he can't get away from this role, Rand is settling into it, and I think he's settling into it really well. Like, I have enjoyed how the narration talks about how Rand starts to fit the clothes that he's in, and he starts to look like he really owns the heron-marked blade. And at the end, when he's battling with the leader of the Shan Chan, he overcomes him ultimately, even though Rand doesn't have all of this blade master stuff, and he started by getting the heron mark blade just because his dad gave it to him, not because he had trained or necessarily earned it in any way. At the end of that battle, he enters the void and he really holds his own after some training with Lan and committing to the void and being like just a well-practiced, more confident person. He wins that battle, and I really liked that. I feel like I could see so much character growth in Rand in this book. Everyone else is doing stuff like, I appreciate Perrin, but he was pretty much on the sidelines. Like, there wasn't much going on with him in this book. Matt had a lot going on. He's still not my favorite because he has a lot going on, but I also don't know that I forgive him for other things that he does, which like be really dismissive and not necessarily the most outwardly supportive of Rand. Like at the beginning, they learned that Rand can channel, and Matt's just like, wow, are you going to go crazy? You should just go far away. And I get that he had a lot going on, and the idea of a man channeling in this world is really scary. But at the same time, I had hoped for some more strong ties of like just loyalty and friendship. I get that Matt would have to be cautious of Rand and being around Rand, but I didn't think that at this very beginning stage, just figuring this out, he's suddenly like, wow, maybe we shouldn't be near each other at all. You know, even though Rand has time. Rand has some, though indistinct and imprecise amount of time for which he's going to be okay. And even Egwene seems to be out there thinking that she can somehow find a way to save Rand and help him. Matt just kind of seemed ready to be like, okay, Rand, I'll miss you, but bye. You have to go so that you don't hurt anyone, you know? And I get it. I just don't like it. I had hoped that they were close enough friends that Matt would be like, wow, that sucks, but you know, we'll get through it until we can't. And he hasn't acted against that, you know, but just his words were disappointing to me. I don't know why. And Perrin was a bit more supportive, in a still cautious way, but way that I liked better. Moiraine was in the background a lot. She pops up at the end, and in the middle, I don't even remember what she was up to or supposed to be up to. We saw other random perspectives pop up, not that like random, they held importance, but like we got the sailor on the spray that they traveled with in the Eye of the World. He came back here, and it turns out that he's an antiques collector who happened to pick up one of the seals to the Dark One's prison. And that's kind of cool too, because he seemed like a really random character. But I think what we see a lot in this book when we get those random little perspectives is that they become important, and it's not spoken necessarily explicitly, but like their importance seems to have arisen shortly after they encounter Rand and like Matt and Perrin. As to Viren, the definition of that word is that they are people for whom the pattern either pushes into a certain alignment or bends, and then anyone in proximity to them will get bent. Their fate gets bent to fit that pattern of the Taviran. And so I think it's cool to see how shortly after Rand and his friends kind of encounter this captain, even he becomes a bigger part of things than he thought he would be, or than we had any reason to believe he would be. And it's because of this effect that the Taviran had. And I like how that's built into the world, and how we see people's lives kind of shift depending on how Mat and Rand and Perrin have interacted with them and encountered them. We didn't see Fane. I don't know what he did. He kind of disappeared. So he's off somewhere. It is said that he is probably like fused with more death from Shadar Logoth. So he is more than he seemed at first. Like, he's no longer necessarily just a dark friend. He's more dangerous than that. I feel like I appreciate more about this book in hindsight than I did while reading a good chunk of it. You know, like, I was reading it and I was kind of waiting for it to be over, and then I got really into it at the end, and then now as I'm talking about it now, I'm like, wow, so many good things happened. So it was a good time. And I'm excited to see what happens in The Dragon Reborn. I think I'm going to start that today, and then after that book I might take a break from The Wheel of Time for a bit. So there might be a lag in these vlogs for The Wheel of Time until I read the 4th book. But I also bought the next box set of 3 books, so I might jump into that next. It'll depend on what my boyfriend and I want to do. If you want to just keep chugging along with The Wheel of Time or try a different series for a bit. I don't know, but I'm excited. So that basically concludes this vlog. Definitely let me know what you thought of The Great Hunt. No spoilers. I'm going to have my boyfriend read comments for these videos before I read them to filter out spoilers. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!